Okay, we're back. Um, I've calmed down from talking about how Israel murdered our U.S. service members and how no one knows about it. If anyone's watching this and doesn't know, I was in the military. I don't want to say too much, but I was an infantryman. I was in the GWAT. I was in the Global War on Terror. Um, I don't particularly like U.S. service members getting killed by foreign countries. Okay, so we left off with that 6 Day War where the USS Liberty incident occurred. Now we're in the Yom Kippur War. This is a retaliation. This is a retaliation. You'll notice 1973, when Israel had their unprecedented threat 10 years earlier, this was not on our radar. We are 10 years after JFK gets assassinated. We are, if I can do math, 7 years, 6 years, um, 6 years after the 6 Day War. This is a retaliation. Egypt and I think Lebanon and Syria get together, or is it just Egypt and Syria for this one? Looks like just Egypt and Syria, led by Egypt and Syria coalition. Maybe Lebanon's involved. Anyways, okay, so most of the fighting occurred in the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights, which is right here. This is the Sinai Peninsula, and then the Golan Heights are up here on the northern end with Lebanon and Syria. Um, Also took place in mainland Egypt, northern Israel. They're wanting to secure a foothold on the east bank of the Suez Canal and use it to negotiate the return of the Sinai Peninsula. Because remember, we looked at this image was in the 6 Day War. After Israel murdered the U.S. peacekeepers in a preemptive attack to gain a foothold and to destroy Egypt's air force, so that Egypt, I mean, okay, if y'all don't understand, you need to understand that air superiority is king in modern conflicts. Air superiority is king. There is nothing like being pinned down from the side of a mountain and having some plane that's basically flying in outer space drop a 2,000-pound JDAM on top of their heads. It is the capabilities that come with air superiority, because there's never, it's either you have air superiority or you don't. You either own the sky or you don't. There's really not a lot of conflict, and if it is, it only exists for a short period of time, where both countries are fighting over airspace. Airspace gets established, air superiority gets established, and then you have that for support. So, anyways, Israel in the 6 Day War, they preemptively struck the Air Force. This is probably Egypt rebuilding their Air Force over this time. And now here we are. Takes place here. They want a foothold. Okay, so basically they want this back. They want this back because this, again, is extremely important. You can tax stuff. You charge like levies or whatever, like a toll basically, for ships coming through here, doing trade, coming around, all this stuff. They want it back. Egypt wants it back. They had it. Israel took it, and just an offensive attack. Granted, Israel was worried, they can't get their ships out, but remember, I talked about this. I talked about it arguably is a reason to go to war, arguably. But remember, they're not blockading Israel. They don't have a blockade set up where Israel can't get stuff. It's just this Israeli ships can't get out. And so it is basically what Egypt was trying to do with that is they were trying to economically strangle Israel, kind of like a siege. Because wars, as we all know, take a lot of money to run. And so that's what they were trying to do. They want it back, probably to close it down and not let Israel ships go out to try again to strangle Israel, because they want Israel to stop attacking people. And at this point, it is even more imperative because people are starting to understand that Israel has nuclear weapons, and America has now completely rescinded their idea of balance and stability in the region, and we have gone all in on Israel. Okay, and so there is a time limit for this. It is a ticking time bomb until it gets to the point where they can't do anything about it. And so Egypt tries to do something about it. They're going to probably try to take it back, probably, again, ostensibly, to shut it down and not let Israeli vessels, to try to strangle them economically and deal with them before they get out of hand. It starts in October of 73. Now it's their turn to launch a surprise attack on Yom Kippur. During the holy day, Yom Kippur coincided with the 10th day of Ramadan, which is a Muslim holiday. And anyways, the U.S. and Soviet Union engaged in massive resupply efforts. Okay, so now, remember last time this happened with the Suez Crisis, and the U.S. And the Soviet Union just said, knock it off right now, and they did. Well, now, because of Israel, now everyone in the world gets to escalate. Everyone gets to escalate. Everyone gets to escalate. And now, again, today, because of Israel, everyone gets to escalate. Now we're probably going to war with Russia. It's probably World War III. Now it's going to be World War III. And it's because of Israel. It's because of Israel. Okay, just remember that when all this stuff is going on. Because now, instead of telling them to knock it off, the U.S. and Soviet Union, now they're engaging in massive resupply efforts for their allies, which again, the U.S. is Israel, and the Arab states is the Soviet Union, which again, we see today with Iran just had their compact with Russia. Heightened the tension between the two superpowers. You guys have got to understand the geopolitical importance of the Middle East and the role that it has played in escalating wars around the world. Around the world! Because Israel wants to keep attacking people. Okay, Egyptian and Syrian forces cross their respective ceasefire lines with Israel. They advance. Okay, so now it's their turn. They're retaliating. Egypt and Syria are the aggressors now. Okay, they're advancing into Sinai and Golan Heights, crossing the Suez Canal. Whatever. This is just their tactics and their strategy and their movements. They halt the advance. Okay, Israel halts them after 3 days. 3 days. Because what's going on here? What's going on? Israel has the best military equipment in the world, courtesy of the United States. Egypt doesn't, and this is what it looks like. It's basically like the Iraq invasion in 2003. This is what it looks like, or even like in the first Gulf War. This more resembles the first Gulf War. Just over like almost instantaneously. Okay, so now they're pushing the Syrians back to the purple line. And that's like these little things. You can see these little hash lines and stuff like that. I think these are the purple lines that they're talking about. I don't know exactly. Whatever. This conflict happens. Israel ends up winning. Also, by the way, like, look at this. Look at all that. Turkey wasn't... Wait, is Turkey even on here? I thought I saw Turkey here. Okay. Anyways, yeah, I was like, Turkey wasn't involved, but they're not on here. Equipment's good. Equipment wins wars. So let's see. They're just talking about the war. This isn't really... see, they're humiliated by their defeat. That's why they did this. Eventually, this is what leads to, here it is. Okay, this is the important part. This is what happens. So these shifts contributed to the peace process. The Camp David Accords were, okay, so Israel's like, okay, you can have it back. And now Egypt and Israel have a peace treaty. Okay, where obviously Egypt's not allowed to prohibit Israeli vessels from going through the Suez Canal. Okay, so now we have, this is important, Lebanon was also, I think Lebanon was also part of this, and kind of also made a peace treaty. Was it this one or was it the next one? I can't remember. At some point, Lebanon's also part of this, but this is the first time that a country bends the knee. And so Egypt bends the knee to Israel. Okay, so now, for all intents and purposes, Egypt is out of Israel's crusade to completely dominate the Middle East. Egypt is out. They have won. Israel has won. Okay, Jordan is also, again, I can't remember at this point in time. I'm not remembering. We may get there in the next thing I cover. But this is important because essentially what Israel wants to happen is they want one of two things. They want to either bring big countries like Egypt under their control, or they want to balkanize, like what's going on in Iraq. They want to chop them up into little sections. Like you've got the Kurds up here, the Sunnis and the Shias, always going to be kind of conflicts. You can divide lines, or Israel wants regimes in these countries that will support Israel. So now, for all intents and purposes, instead of chopping up Egypt, Israel got what they wanted. They got the regime in Egypt, and this is going to come into play later. I might have to do a different video on that. But anyways, we're just going to continue. So that's the Yom Kippur War, leads to the peace treaty. Egypt bends the knee, and they're out. Egypt. Oh, here's just the peace treaty okay. It was in here, but I was going to talk about it. Egypt is out. They're no longer part of the story. Okay, now this is this is when it happens with Lebanon. The year after, really close in time. Okay, so the South Lebanon conflict, Israel invades Lebanon. Surprise, surprise. So in response to the bomb. So remember, I talked about this before in the last video. There are skirmishes going on all the time because if you remember, according to the Arabs, the Nakba is still an ongoing ethnic cleansing. And arguably, after the Gaza thing we all just witnessed, it's still going on. Gaza's going to have to be a different video. I'm going to touch on it, but anyways, Gaza was just another Israeli aggression move to control the Middle East. Had nothing to do with Hezbollah, had nothing to do with Hamas. They were primarily operating in Syria and Lebanon. There's no way that after doing all this stuff and all these wars and everything, that Israel is just going to let this area right here, that they're just going to let them become a terrorist hotbed. And in fact, there were so many terrorists here that they destroyed what I think I saw something recently. It's like 95% of the structures. Who knows how many tens of thousands of civilians were killed? Israel was bringing aid trucks in with food and just machine gunning civilians. Like I mentioned earlier, they were dropping bombs on the fleeing civilians when they were trying to come through here in this pass and get into the Sinai Peninsula and get into Egypt. Anyways, Lebanon conflict. The important thing with this, I'll just cover it anyways. All right, so it began when Israel invaded southern Lebanon, response to the Coastal Road massacre. So basically, as part of these skirmishes that are ongoing, this happens. 38 civilians die. It's awful. It is a terrorist attack. But if you want to call it that, realistically, it's just war, is really what this is. This is just kind of an ongoing war from 1948 that just never ended. So now we have an attack that kills 38 Israelis. That's what they base this on. Israel's been attacking them. Lebanon's been responding. Israel's attacking everybody. There's skirmishes with everybody that borders Israel. I don't know how else to really describe it, but that's just what's been going on. The internal displacement here, we got more Okay, so 1,100 to 2,000 Lebanese Palestinians, 20 Israelis. Again, equipment wins wars. These little countries Now's a good time to explain this. I just talked about how they want to either get a regime change in big countries or something to bring these big countries into line, or they want to balkanize them and separate them and chop them up. The reason for that is because big countries, like Iran, is a big country. Iran is a big country. It's like Saudi Arabia size. Big countries have a lot of people, which means a lot of soldiers, which means a good economy, which means you can finance a war, and you have scientists who develop nuclear weapons, which we're going to talk about. Okay. Jordan, Lebanon, right here, not a big country. They are not going to have the mind and the equipment, or to develop the equipment. They're not going to have the resources. They're not going to have the intelligence. They're not going to have the schools. They're not going to have all of this stuff. They're not going to have the peace. The peace. You need peace to develop things, because if your people are getting bombed all the time, they're not worried. You know, it could be like an arms race, but then you just blow up the schools, which is what Israel just did with Iran, with the drones, and killed their scientists, because they know they're going to start developing a nuke. Anyways, whatever. IDF gains a military victory against the PLO. They're forced to withdraw from southern Lebanon. Outbreak of hostility. So now the UN's talking about it. Again, you guys, again. Israel starts this stuff, and it ends up with the UN having to get involved and get these resolutions to be like, stop. Like, just stop. Like, why? Why are you doing this? And the reason why is because Israel needs to control all of the Middle East to create the third temple. And that's kind of another video too. Anyways, Zionism. Just look up what the goal and the purpose of Zionism is. So they call on them to withdraw their troops. They're like, okay, yeah, sick, and then they just do it again. And then they do it again 4 years later. We got some stuff going on in Iraq here with Operation Opera. They destroy. Okay, so now, do I talk about it here? I'll talk about it after this. So a surprise airstrike conducted by Israel, destroying an unfinished Iraqi nuclear reactor, because everyone knows at this point that Israel has nukes. How do you keep a country from nuking you if they have nukes and you don't? You can't. So what is Iraq trying to do? Iraq starts to do the thing that was the reason why we had a balanced approach to the Middle East. They start, now we're seeing an arms race. This is the first kind of whispers of it. Not even whispers. Iraq's trying to develop a nuke. It's an arms race. This is why JFK did not want Israel to get a nuclear weapon, because he knew that this was going to happen. He knew, because he had the U.S. military intelligence industrial complex tell him that this was going to happen. That this was going to happen. If Israel gets nukes, who is ethnically cleansing Palestinians, the Nakba, all this stuff, the Suez thing, they're invading countries, they're aggressive. They get struck back, but in retaliation for invading Egypt and capturing their territory. And now here we are in the 80s. 1981 is the arms race that JFK was trying to prevent, that LBJ, and earlier I couldn't find it here. about the arms embargo. So Kennedy ends the arms embargo, and then all of a sudden, the new administration that comes in and sends these scientists to check these plants out. By the way, hey, they're checking the reactor out. Remember how we talked about they had 6 American inspections of this plant that helped Israel produce its first nuclear weapon in 66 and 67. Americans were inspecting this plant and obviously found that there was fissile material, but guess who didn't care? The administration after JFK. All of a sudden, not only do we completely abandon the regional stability thing by pouring on the gas and giving Israel our equipment so that they can invade. Oh, did I delete it? No, right here. So that they can invade people, right? They can invade and they can lose like nobody. They can lose 20 Israelis and kill 1,000 to 2,000 Lebanese and Palestinians. Obviously, they're not nuking them, but what is that? That's this. I can't find it. I can never find it. That's this right here. That's this stuff. That's this. And so now it's completely off the rails. Now Iraq has to develop a nuclear weapon. They have to. Because look at what's happened. Look what's happened. Egypt bent the knee. Jordan, I think it was part of the Yom Kippur stuff. I can't remember. By this point in time, Egypt has bent the knee. Jordan has bent the knee. These are treaties with Israel. Lebanon, small. Syria, we haven't really got to Syria yet. They've been involved. No major operations between Israel and Syria yet. Y'all know about 2011, hopefully. Iraq is like, okay, so Syria's next. Israel had just demolished Lebanon. Absolute, not even close. Like, it wasn't even a conflict. It was just a slaughter. Iraq is like, the only thing standing between Israel and us is Syria. They're next. And then it's us. And so what do? They start developing a nuke so that when it comes time for Israel to attack Iraq, then they won't be able to. The nuclear thing is not in the equation. And Iraq is a big country. Okay? Iraq is a big country. They have a big army. When we invaded in 2003, I think they had, I think it was like 300 to 350,000 soldiers. We'll talk about that later. We'll touch on that later. Okay. Actually, we can start touching on it right now, I guess. The Gulf War. I didn't pull anything up about the Gulf War because the Gulf War is another WMD thing with Iraq. People these days generally know about the first Gulf War. More WMDs on Iraq. We go in now because, like, it's like regional stability, but I keep losing it. It's like regional stability, but we're making it stable for Israel to destroy everybody, is essentially what has been happening. So there's that. Okay, I was thinking about whether or not to talk about this. I'm going to touch on September 11th. And I am going to show you a video of an ABC News broadcast, and I'm going to do my best to leave it at that. I could do a whole nother video on September 11th, but okay, here we go. Everyone knows this, hopefully. Everyone knows. September 11th happens. September 11th happens. And what happens as a result? We seem to think that this dude, in Afghanistan/Pakistan somehow was able to orchestrate the biggest terrorist attack on Western civilization in the history of Western civilization. These mountain people, which, by the way, if you don't know anything about Afghanistan's just a mountain. It's just a big mountain, and then there's a desert down here with pretty much nothing in it, and it's just, look, the whole border just goes around the mountain. These people, they are village people. They are backwater. They are backwards. They have AKs from the war with the Soviets that the Soviets lost. I don't know why we thought that we could win in Afghanistan. Anyways, they have AKs. They have bolt action rifles from the 1870s. They have AKs that are so old and have been used so much that the barrels are shot out so badly that their max effective range is basically 50 meters. And somehow, this guy, Osama bin Laden, was able to completely, right under the nose of Five Eyes, of U.S. intelligence, of Israeli intelligence, of all of our allies' intelligence, was able to orchestrate a massive attack on the United States, which obviously included the Twin Towers, which were hit by planes. It included World Trade Center 7 getting demolished, which I'm going to show you a video of. Didn't get hit by a plane. And the Pentagon. And of course, because I can't talk about anything in this area with Israel, remember, up until this point in time, the common denominator for every single conflict from 1948 until September 11th, 2001, the common denominator is Israel in every single one. Every single one. The Pentagon on September 10th, 2001 comes out and they're like, we don't know where $2.3 trillion went. And then, because we can't have because anything that Israel is involved with, it just so happens, there are so many coincidences when Israel's involved, that the financial office at the Pentagon that had all of the financial records got destroyed the day after the Pentagon announces $2.3 trillion is missing. Just a little tidbit, just a little extra for you there. But we're supposed to believe the official story is that some mountain man was able to orchestrate this. Oh, and by the way, of course, the foreign terrorist operatives, because obviously, if you are going to do a clandestine terrorist operation in a foreign country, you're going to take your actual passport with you, which is, according to the official story, what the hijackers did. And of course, one of the passports survived, because that also makes sense, and it was a Saudi Arabian passport. So naturally, we end up in war with Iraq and Afghanistan. And so that's the official story. We have Afghanistan over here. They blamed it on Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was not behind 9/11. And I'm going to tell you why. I mentioned earlier that I was in the military. So if you're on a fob and you see a dude on a roof or on the side of a mountain or somewhere video cameraing your fob, videoing it, you know that you're about to get attacked. Probably going to get mortared or rocketed. But they're filming it because they use it for recruitment propaganda. And I'm going to explain logically why it does not make sense to believe that Osama bin Laden was behind September 11th. Okay, so they use it for recruitment propaganda. There was, I think it was 2000. I can't remember the name of the battleship. There was a battleship that was parked somewhere, docked somewhere, parked, whatever. And this little suicide boat, basically a dinghy, with just a little onboard, like just a little, little motor kind of thing on the back. They basically turned it into a suicide boat. They filled it with explosives. They literally just drove up to the side of the battleship and they detonated it, put a huge hole in the battleship. Battleship was out of commission, all this stuff. There was a guy that was supposed to film it. He fell asleep and then they executed him. Anyways, getting propaganda for recruitment is how they do things. And I promise you that if Osama bin Laden came out and told the world that he was behind the September 11th attack, and he showed how they did it, and had all the video and all that stuff, every single terrorist on this map and outside of it would have immediately come and been like, let's go. Okay, and you're like, oh, well, of course he wouldn't admit to committing a huge terrorist attack against the United States. Yes, he would. In fact, even if he didn't do it, he knew that we were going to kill him anyways. He knew, because he knew that he didn't do it, and he knows what's going on with Israel, and he knows that Israel wants to take over the Middle East. And so he should have said that he did it to get more bodyguards. But anyways, that's kind of sketchy. I am going to show you a ABC News broadcast. And then I'm going to show you... actually, first, hang on, let me do the World Trade Center 7. No, we'll do this one first. How do I do this? Hang on. All right.
It began when this woman was watching the Twin Towers burning from her apartment in New Jersey. She noticed 3 men on top of a van, posing for pictures with the towers burning in the background.
And I could see that they were like happy. You know, they didn't look shocked to me. You know, they didn't look shocked. I thought it was very strange.
The witness called police, who stopped the van hours later and arrested 5 men. All 5, it turns out, were Israeli. They were turned over to the FBI. Sources tell ABC News during a check of national security databases, some of the men were listed as having had connections with Israeli intelligence. At the FBI, that set off alarm bells.
The FBI needed the answers to 3 important questions. Who were these men? What brought them to that parking lot on the morning of September 11th? And did they have any advance knowledge of what was going to happen that day?
They said they worked for a company called Urban Moving. The FBI obtained a search warrant for the company's offices.
2 SUVs were filled up with between 9 and 12 boxes and computers.
Not long after the arrests, the offices of Urban Moving were simply abandoned. Almost everything was left behind. In jail, the 5 Israelis were repeatedly interrogated and given lie detector tests. Stephen Gordon was their American lawyer.
They were asked questions if they had ever been approached by or hired by any non-United States intelligence community.
While there is still some debate among American intelligence officials, many investigators believe some of the men were part of an Israeli operation aimed at monitoring radical Islamic charities that support groups like Hamas, something lawyers for the 5 men and the Israeli government strongly deny.
And at that point, we were
This
taken
is
for
one of the
another round
guys,
questioning,
by the way.
This time related to our allegedly being members of Mossad. The fact of the matter is, we are coming from a country that experiences terror daily. Our purpose was to document the event. Our purpose was to document the event.
Okay, there's one. Let's look at this one.
Well,
Look at how happy she is.
big catastrophe, and I'm Israeli, and I hope that now people understand what we have to deal with, the kind of people that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis.
The kind of people.
That's
Yeah, okay. Look at how happy she was that her greatest ally just got attacked by her enemies. This is World Trade Center 7, the third building that fell that wasn't hit by a plane. Obviously controlled demolition. How do I get back to... Alright. So... Who was it? Was it Lucius Cassius or Marcus Aurelius that said cui bono? Let's just see. Let me look it up real quick. I think it was Cassius. Whoever it was. It means who benefits. From a Roman, from a Caesar, Roman emperor dude. Who benefits? Who benefited from 9/11? Israel did. We didn't benefit. Iraq didn't benefit. Iraq and Afghanistan sure didn't benefit. Iran didn't benefit. Saudi Arabia didn't benefit. No one benefited except for Israel. Because, like I talked about earlier, so Iraq's over here, they're developing stuff. Iraq is a big country. I had mentioned that they had 300 to 350,000 troops. This would be the biggest enemy. I think they definitely had a bigger... I think Egypt had a bigger air force, but I think Iraq had a bigger ground force. And Israel's worried about Iraq because they have not secured Syria yet. They have not secured Syria. So if Israel knows that Iraq is starting to escalate. Iraq is starting to be like understanding what's about to happen to them. And so that's why they're trying to get nukes. That's why you have this up here, Operation Opera. That's why you have the first Gulf War and stuff, because Iraq's trying to get ready. Well, Israel doesn't want Iraq to send their ground army through Syria, which Israel doesn't have control of yet, through Syria and into Israel. The reason why we went to war with Afghanistan, look at Iran. Look at this. Look at Afghanistan and look at Iraq. Okay? We were sandwiching Iran. Afghanistan failed. We lost the war in Afghanistan. That was not planned. We were supposed to seize Kabul. We were supposed to seize Kaf, the airfield, so that, and all the airfields, Kandahar, Herat, we were supposed to seize these airfields to stage attacks on Iran for the war that Israel just started. Okay, so Afghanistan, they blamed it on Osama bin Laden. Yeah, no. Iraq, everyone hopefully has heard of this before. Some people may not have. We went to war with Iraq because the CIA brought yellow cake powder into Congress in a vial. Yellow cake powder is a byproduct of enriching uranium. The CIA, of the world's the best intelligence capabilities in the world, said that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Guess what Iraq did not have? Weapons of mass destruction. Who benefited from us invading Iraq? Israel did. So it's just, and why did we stay? Why did we stay in Iraq? And this is there's a two-pronged thing. And now I'm going to start getting into the Iran stuff that's going on right now. When we found out that Iraq had WMDs, why didn't we just leave? It's like I talked about in the previous video, Israel, and in this video, I think Israel wants two things. They want regime change, which is what we got. That's what they got in Iraq. That's what they got. They got regime change. We overthrew Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and it just completely destabilized. The Kurds were going insane. Syria falls after, all that stuff. Libya. And we didn't leave. The first Gulf War, we went in, WMD's gone, whatever, we left. We left Saddam Hussein in power because he stabilized the area. Why did we stay? Once we found out that Iraq had no WMDs, why did the American public not care? Why was there no investigation as to who obviously lied to us to drag us into a war with an innocent country? An innocent country. Because remember, America's policy, although it's no longer stabilization in the region, it is still non-proliferation. You know how we invaded Iraq when they got WMDs? Why didn't we invade Israel when they got WMDs in 66 and 67? It's because they had completely infiltrated the American government. Completely. And so that's, and why we stayed and why we're still there today is for two things. Like I mentioned with Iraq, is to control these air bases. It's to have a center, a staging area. You know, you got Kuwait right here, but Kuwait's not really that big. Iran could go and take that like instantly. Iraq is a much bigger landmass. It's much more difficult to control. The more land there is, the more difficult it is to control, and the more thinly spread you get, obviously. The other reason is because now I'm going to get into this. I'm going to get into this stuff. What did Iran just say? I think it was today, this morning, or last night. They said that if America does not stop aiding Israel, that they are going to attack American forces, which are conveniently right next door to them. How convenient, because if Iran attacks American forces, Israel knows that that's it. We're going to war. Despite the fact, by the way, that the United States is the aggressor in the Iranian conflict that's going right now, and I'm going to tell you why. Here we go. Here you go. How an Israeli-American deception campaign lulled Iran into a false sense of security. Published June 13th, published yesterday. Okay. Israel says, an Israeli official, Israel said that the 60-day negotiation that Trump had set up with Iran, all the stuff, all the flying around, meeting with the Ayatollah's people, all the talks, everything. It was all a deception to lull them into a false sense of security. And guess what Donald Trump says? He says, we knew everything about Israel's strikes on Iran. That's what he said. So basically what happened is that Israel and the United States colluded together to orchestrate all these peace talks with Iran, to lull them into a false sense of security so that they would not be prepared. That's why Israel's attack was so effective. Iran was caught off guard, just like how Egypt was caught off guard through deception, because Israel said, we don't care about the UN peacekeepers. We are going to strike before you're ready at the outset of the war. It is the common theme with Israel. Mossad, let's see. I'm pretty sure Mossad's motto is to wage war by deception. By way of deception, thou shalt do war. I mean, by way of deception, thou shalt do war. Like maybe deceiving people that some mountain man was able to attack the most powerful country in the world and orchestrate an insanely intricate attack on the Pentagon and the Twin Towers. Could that be deception? It could be. And so Trump says, yep, that's what we did. And then Trump comes out and says there has already been great death and destruction, but there is still time to make this slaughter, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal, come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there is nothing left and save what was once known as the Iranian Empire. Israel says, we just use these peace talks to deceive you. The president says, yep. And then he says, how about some more peace talks? Otherwise, this is going to be an even more brutal, more death and destruction. Here's another. Okay, so first off, I'll just cover this now. What President Trump just did. Now, I appreciate a lot of people like him. A lot of people like what he does for things and stuff. But what President Trump just did is from now until there are no more peace talks. Just by the way, all the peace talks with Russia and Ukraine? Nope. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? You think that Russia is going to come to the table after this? After this? After lulling Iran into a false sense of security, and the president was like, yep, that's what we did? You think that there's going to be any more peace talks with Russia? Trump campaigned on peace, and then he comes out and he completely destroys any possibility of peace negotiations, frankly, with any country for the rest of America's existence. Would you do it? Would you go to peace talks with a country that is known to use them to gain a strategic advantage in a war? Nope. This is what else he talked about. I told them it would be much worse than anything they know, anticipated, or were told, that the United States makes the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world. He's saying, we have given our military equipment to Israel, and they are using it, and they are going to continue to use it to attack your country, to assassinate your military leadership, to assassinate your civilian scientists. And that Israel has a lot of it, because we gave it to them, with much more to come. So he's forecasting that we're going to continue to give Israel stuff that they are going to use to kill Iranians with. Imagine if the roles were switched. Imagine if you're America, someone just attacked us, And they were like, y'all, and they just hoodwinked us on these peace talks. And they were like, you better come back to the table, otherwise we are going to keep on funding this proxy state of ours to continue to attack you and kill you with our equipment. The idea that America is not involved in this conflict already is one that only room temperature IQ people get to entertain. America is not only absolutely involved, but without America, this attack was not going to happen. Because you better believe that along with all of our most lethal military equipment, that we also gave Israel all of our best intelligence stuff, all of our satellites, all of our strike coordination, all of our target gathering, all of our target details, our target packets, all of our intelligence on Iran. They had it. They knew where to attack. They used our stuff to attack them. And now, just to be sure, Israel included the people that Trump was talking with about peace deals in their strikes. They're dead. They're dead. Israel has cornered us. They have absolutely cornered us. They flew over here. Okay, so this is what happened. They started with a cyber operation, which Israel has some of the best cyber capabilities in the world. Again, they're not a strong, big country, and so that's what they've been doing. I guess I should touch on this, by the way, before the Iran stuff. Obviously, maybe not obviously, y'all remember Libya over here. Gaddafi got overthrown. Syria, Assad's gone. They said he had chemical weapons. He never used them. And that's justified us going in there. So just Israel, everything is gone. Saudi Arabia has bent the knee because they like our money from the oil. UAE, Yemen, we're in Yemen screwing them over. Oman, I think, has bent the knee to Israel. Syria's done. They got a regime change that's going to be loyal to Israel. Iraq is done. They got a regime change that's going to be loyal to Israel. Afghanistan doesn't matter because there are just mountain people. By the way, in Afghanistan, like, just to let you know what their society is like, there's literally just a boy in every single one of these villages in this mountain that just gets raped. Like, that's just what happens. Like, all the men in the village just raped this one 12-year-old boy. That's like the kind of stuff that they're concerned about. They don't care about any of this stuff. And so we are cornered now because Israel said that we deceived them. Trump, for whatever reason, I'm not sure if... Okay, so Trump tells Netanyahu, do not attack Iran. He tells him that. Then what does Netanyahu do? He attacks Iran. And there's a possibility that I've seen some people float that I had not considered, that... Okay, so Netanyahu just vetoed the U.S. What should happen is Trump should say, oh, okay, you want a war, you can have a war, and we withdraw all of our support. But that's not going to happen, not what's going to happen, because our government's completely infiltrated and occupied by Israeli citizens, Israeli loyalists. You can just look it up. I won't get into it all now, all the dual citizenship stuff. I mean, like, just think about the last election. Like, look at, where's that picture? Look at this. Are you kidding me? Are you serious? What good? What good? Let's talk about everything that we've just gone through. Let's talk about this. Why is Israel our greatest ally? Is it because they killed John F. Kennedy so they could get nuclear weapons? Is that why they're our greatest ally? Is it because they killed 34 service members and wounded 172 more and were machine gunning life rafts and medical personnel trying to save lives on an obviously American vessel? Is that why they're our greatest ally? So when I was in Iraq, I saw UK troops, I saw German troops, and I saw Australian Special Forces. I never saw a single Israeli. Not a single one. What war has Israel helped us fight? Because remember, before they started doing all this stuff, everything was fine. Everything was fine up to Kennedy. There was balance. The USSR and was balancing the Arabs, and the US was balancing Israel. There was balance here. And then what happens? What happens? Kennedy gets assassinated. There's a new administration that completely 180s and turns a blind eye over 6 inspections, turns a blind eye to the fact that Israel has nuclear weapons. Now Israel has nuclear weapons, which is, by the way, the reason why we had the first Gulf War, which is, by the way, the reason why we went to Iraq in 2003. And we just let Israel get nukes? We go from the Israeli Air Force commander seriously entertaining the fear that Kennedy might send U.S. airborne troops to destroy the reactor, to we don't care anymore, to we don't care about stabilization, we don't care about stability, we don't care about nuclear weapons in other countries. For whatever reason, Israel's just a magical exception to the fact that the more countries that have nukes, the more likely a nuclear war is. We just turned a blind eye on our ruthless non-proliferation. I hope that you can appreciate the gravity of our desire for not proliferating nuclear weapons. What is this? And then you got all the LA riots going on, and all these politicians, all these conservative politicians who can't even conserve the definition of a woman. By the way, just a little aside, the purpose of conservatives in American politics is to secure the gains that the left gets. That is why conservatives exist. They don't conserve anything. They don't conserve anything. I mean, look at what happened. The liberals pushed homosexuality and gay marriage. Now what do we have? We have our based faggots. We have our based gays and our based trannies on the right. Give me a break. What an absolute joke of a party. It's the uniparty. This is your political system. Right here. This is it. This is what it is. It is the only thing that explains. It is the only thing that explains the 6 from going from JFK not wanting them to have nukes. It is the only thing that explains all of this is that Israel has occupied our government. The 6 inspections where we didn't care that they had nukes. We didn't care. We started giving them all this stuff. Because who wants war? Who wants war? Israel does. Who wants war in the Middle East? Israel does. Nakaba, Israel wants that, loves it. They want nukes so that they can get more war in the Middle East. They want more. They want more war. War. We want it. Oh, a retaliation. Bend the knee. Oh, peace treaty. They bent the knee. More war. More war. Do you want war in the Middle East? Let's see if there's any polls on this right now. Let's see. That can't be true. Hang on. This looks like... Hang on, where is it? I saw something earlier today. It was like 90% of the country don't want... See, we want negotiated agreement. That's what we want. Guess who didn't want a negotiated agreement? Israel. So guess who got what they wanted again? Guess who got what they wanted again? Israel. They got it again. Just think about the position that we're in. I don't know where the poll's at. That I saw earlier. I saw it was 90-10 to people not in support of. God, this is just so ridiculous. Not in support of war with Iran. I mean, can it get any more obvious? Oh, I'm sorry. I totally got off course. I was talking about the LA riots and the politicians being like, oh, only the American flag flies in America right outside their office. What do they have? Israeli flag. Give me a break. Give me a break. What do you think is going on here? After everything that you have just seen, what do you think is going on? In my opinion, the only explanation is that Israel has completely occupied the United States government. I mean, think about it. No one wants illegal immigration. What did we get? Immigration. What do we get? We got immigration. Look at this. Hang on, where's the acronym? Where does it spell it out? Where is it? Just want you to see what the name of this organization is. The Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. Ah, yes, of course. Guess where they ain't immigrating to? Israel. Not in Israel. Not resettled in... Oh, why is Israel resettling immigrants in the United States? Why is that? Do we want that? I don't. Do you want it? Does your neighbor want it? The American people don't want it. So why is it happening? Whose interests do our politicians support? Oh, and also, like, I can start looking these up, but seriously, go look up any House bill, any resolution. Look at the votes on pro-Israel stuff. And you tell me, with the political climate and how divisive everything is, how divided everyone is, go just look at the votes, the ratios of votes on all of these resolutions and bills for Israel aid and stuff. Where was it? It was like Nancy Pelosi said that America would burn to the ground, and the one thing that would remain is our aid to Israel. Why? Is that because our politicians represent American interests? Or is that because our politicians represent Israeli interests? What is Israel interested in? They're interested in war with Iran. They're interested in regime change in Iran, or to balkanize it and cut it up into a bunch of little countries that can't become Iran again. And so here is... Okay, I should have talked about this at the beginning. I really should have. But at the beginning of the Iran conflict, the current spin on the Iran conflict is that we are going to war with Iran because they have nuclear weapons. Like, oh no, our non-proliferation stuff, despite the fact, again, why does Israel have them? It is not because of nuclear weapons. I am going to explain the tightrope that Iran has had to walk since the 80s. Iraq, this happened. This happened in Iraq, Operation Opera. And then the first Gulf War happened in Iraq. Iran understands that if they do not have a nuclear weapon and Israel does, they could get nuked. They probably will get nuked. I'm just going to tell you guys right now, this ends almost certainly with Iran getting nuked. Iran has 1 million soldiers. What happened the last time we were involved in a large-scale conflict, and there was a country that was not going to surrender, that had too many troops to invade? What did we do? We dropped a nuke on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. What do you think is going to happen? They have 1 million soldiers, you guys. A million. Iraq had 300 to 350,000. You can read any book. You can read any book about the Iraq invasion. That's not real. That's a real number, but over half of them instantly ran. Their fighting spirit was non-existent. Iranian soldiers are going to be a little bit different. And there's 3 times as many of them, by the way, because Iraq, they had places to run to in 2003. They could run to Syria. They could run to Iran. A ton of them went to Turkey. Anyways, so if they don't have a nuke, Israel's going to nuke them. You've got to have the nuclear deterrent if you're going to get in a conflict with a nuclear country. You've got to have a nuclear deterrent or you just automatically lose. What are they going to do? Be like, oh, we'll fight you. And they're just going to be like, oh, okay, well, we'll just nuke you. That's fine. And so what they did, they also know that they can't have a nuclear weapon because as soon as they do, the United States is all of a sudden going to decide that we're non-proliferation again and we're going to invade them. So what has Iran done for the past 30 years? And they have done this for the past 30 years. What have they done? I'll show you what they did. 1992, Netanyahu, then wasn't the prime minister, expressed concerns. He warned them that Iran could achieve nuclear weapons capability within 3 to 5 years. This was in 1992. What Iran has done is they have found a tightrope to walk where they don't have nuclear weapons, so the U.S. isn't going to invade them. But they are readily capable of developing a nuclear weapon rapidly. They don't not have a nuke. They don't have a nuke. It's basically like the ambiguity thing that Israel's got going on. It's basically ambiguous. They simultaneously have and don't have a nuke at the same time. That policy is to prevent Israel from doing what they did in all these countries, regime change. Because if Israel attacks Iran, they rapidly develop a nuke. Now we're in a nuclear war. If they develop a nuke, then the U.S. gets pulled in. If they attack U.S. soldiers, then the U.S. gets pulled in. Why did Israel do this? For 30 years, Iran has been in this state of almost having a nuclear weapon with no intention of having a nuclear weapon. That was the only way they could have a deterrent that worked. They didn't have one, but they could have one quickly. America didn't care because, well, we care a little bit, but we're keeping an eye on it. And as long as they don't develop one, our non-proliferation stuff doesn't apply. It doesn't interest us. They still kind of have one to deter Israel. And so what does Israel do? They kick the hornet's nest, and then they corner us with this. They corner us with this and this. Now, Iran is going to develop a nuclear weapon. And the reason why Iran is going to develop a nuclear weapon is because this attack is the contingency for this. The ability to rapidly create nuclear weapons, and the reason why they didn't have them stockpiled, and the reason why they weren't just not involved at all, is for this contingency. So now, guess what we get? We get a nuclear arms war, arms race. That's what we've got going on right now. And this is inevitable because, oh crap, where is it? I don't remember where it's at. Iran's main enrichment and stockpile facility is under a massive mountain. There is one country that has the capabilities to destroy a deep underground bunker underneath a mountain, and it ain't Israel. It's not Israel. It's the United States. And so what should happen is the U.S. should be like, hey, you wanted a war? We told you not to. You started one. That's your war. We are out. All of our aid is gone. Why? Because we want to protect our soldiers, right? We want to protect our people. Because Israel is not our people. They hate Christians. By the way, nope, hang on. Where is it? It's not that one. They're not spitting on the ground. They spit on Christians. Oh, did they get rid of it? They probably did. You can find it on here somewhere. There were travel advisories for it. Of course they hate Christians. They hate Jesus. They're not our people. And this is what's happening. America supplied, as we saw up here, Trump being all like, oh, the most lethal military equipment, look how cool we are and all this stuff. We supplied them with all these weapons. We continue to supply them. And by the way, all those attacks that happened last night, over the past 24 or 48 hours or so, all the attacks from Iran to Israel, we got aircraft carriers parked all over the place, intercepting these missiles. Many more would have hit Israel without us. So the attack could not have happened without America because of our equipment and our intelligence. We deceived the Iranians into thinking that we wanted peace when we didn't. And now, instead of cutting slack and bailing and being like, Americans are about to die because of what Israel just did. Hey, Iran, we are sorry. We can't repossess all of our military equipment, but we are withdrawing all aid. Do not attack our people while we pull them out, please. That's not what happened. That's what should happen. That would be in the best interest of America. But the American government does not serve the interests of America. It serves the interests of Israel. And Israel wants war with Iran because Iran's it. Iran's it. That's all that's left. Saudi Arabia, we bribed with foreign aid. America bribed them. They've bent the knee. Egypt bent the knee. Jordan bent the knee. Syria, regime change. Lebanon, way too small and basically done at this point. Iraq, regime change, bent the knee. All that's left is Iran, their biggest enemy. Their most dangerous enemy is Iran. And so that's what's going on right now. I don't know what else really to touch on. I can think for a little bit, see if I forgot anything, but I mean, we can look up some things like you can look up, I think last time I researched this, I think it was 41 members of Congress had dual citizenship with Israel. By the way, how is that a thing? How can you be a politician in a country that you don't hold allegiance to? Looks like this is saying 35. Biden's cabinet was just all Jews. That's what's making sense. Oh, I could look this up too. I showed you Hayes or Highs or whatever, but top Immigration NGOs. These things, I'm not going to pull all these up. You start researching all these things. They're all Jews. All the immigration lawyers are Jews. All the NGOs are Jews. Why do we have all this stuff? Why are Jews sending immigrants to the United States? Why are they doing that? And Europe. Why is that? Is that in America's interest? Here's what's going on. Israel, the Jews, the primary, the foundational belief of Judaism necessarily must be that Jesus Christ was not the Son of God. I guess I'll get into this a little bit. This is how you can recognize the Spirit of God. Every spirit that acknowledges that Jesus Christ has come from the flesh is from God, but every spirit that does not acknowledge Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist. There you go. There you go, Christians. There it is. You think there's a spiritual war going on? Well, who's your enemy? Could it be the people that killed Jesus? Ooh, is it? No, it's 1 Thessalonians. Here you go. You suffered from your own people the same things as churches suffered from the Jews who killed the Lord Jesus and the prophets and also drove us out. They displease God and are hostile to everyone. They are hostile to everyone. To everyone. To JFK. To Egypt. To Egypt again. Do you think that Israel cares if American troops die because they attacked Iran? Zero Israelis died in the GWAT. Zero. Let's see if I type it out. If we'll get it. Nah, this is all just the ongoing Nakba, however you pronounce that thing. Zero. I'll just tell you, zero. You can look. I've researched this before. Zero Israeli soldiers died, but hey, Israel got what they wanted. Thousands of American service members died in Iraq. Thousands died in Afghanistan. We killed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. When I was there, things were still winding down. Ooh, I can't give you the year, but we were killing about 450 people a week. The U.S. coalition forces while I was there. 450 people a week. We killed and that's on the tail end. We killed so many people for Israel so that they could control the Middle East. Because for whatever reason, after JFK, not for whatever reason, it's because Israel had established their control of the United States government after World War II. All the Bolshevik communists came over from Germany and infiltrated our government. That's a whole separate topic. But that's what happened. They infiltrated our government, our institutions, our educational institutions, our media, Hollywood, all of it. They control all of the information and they control all of the government apparatus. Let's see what the vote was on this. Look at this. Pro-Israel, 412 to 1. When will you ever see 412 to 1 to stop foreign aid when we're $36 trillion in debt? No, because that wouldn't help Israel. That would only help the American people. Would you see a vote of 412 to 1 for closing the southern border? No! Because that would help Americans, not Israel. And so that's what's going on. With the religious stuff I was talking about, here's what's happening. Israel doesn't believe that Jesus was the Messiah. So they think the Messiah is still coming from Isaiah. All the stuff in Isaiah, they think that none of that has happened yet. And if you don't know, the world changed before Jesus was born. They built the Romans built all the highways. They built all the stuff. The world changed to prepare for the coming of Jesus to be able to efficiently spread the gospel. And so world preparation is what Israel is doing right now. But instead of preparing for the Messiah, they're preparing it for the Antichrist. And that is what's going on. And that is what's going to happen. Iran is going to lose this war. They necessarily must. Because as long as Iran exists, Israel is not going to have complete control over this region, and they are not going to be able to rebuild the third temple. Because if Iran exists, then Revelation can't happen. So of course Iran's going to lose. The only question is how they're going to lose. Are we going to nuke them, or are we going to go into another war and lose thousands of our soldiers because Israel wanted war with Iran and we didn't? That's really the only question right now. Oh, and by the way, it's also going to be with Russia. Oh, and by the way, our military sucks right now. That's why if you guys noticed, towards the end of the Biden administration, that's why they stopped with all the DEI stuff. Because if you don't know this, minorities don't fight. Minorities take all the easy jobs. They're like the water purification specialists and like the office clerks and stuff like that. There's no, look at us. Okay, I was going to say SEALs, but obviously black people, swimming, not really a good mix there. But look at like any special operations group. It is all white dudes. The best warriors in the world have always been white men. And so what does Israel need in the army now? They had their fun the left-wing Israelis, the Jews were all like, wouldn't it be funny if we have trannies in the army? Like, wouldn't it be funny if we let women be infantry? And then they were putting all these ads out of all this diverse nonsense for their recruitment, and recruitment was like at an all-time low. And then all of a sudden, it just so happens, leading up to this conflict, they geared up the recruitment and it has exploded. The military recruitment has exploded. Again, y'all, whenever Israel's involved, there ain't no coincidences. Do you think it's a coincidence that we're having the military parade today? Do you really think that the largest military parade I think the country has ever had is 2 days into this conflict with Iran? We knew everything. That's crazy. Oh, another thing I started talking about that I'll just touch on and then I think I'll be done. I get sidetracked easily. I saw some personalities talking about how they think that this was in response because Netanyahu basically stiff-armed Trump. And Trump said, do not attack. And Israel said, oh, we're attacking. And just vetoed the United States. And someone has said that Trump walked into this and didn't actually know, may have not actually known anything, but because of Trump's personality, and he just got stiff-armed by Netanyahu, he couldn't bear to lose face, so he was like, oh yeah, we knew about that. And that kind of makes sense, because how are you going to admit that you were part of a deception campaign and then tell them to come back to the table before it's too late? How can you do that? The peace talks are done. Just by the way, there's no more peace talks. That's done because of this. Because he said this. So much for his campaign promises of peace. I want to believe that Trump isn't stupid enough to do something like this and walk into something obvious like this. Like, of course, Israel's going to try to pull us in. They killed the people that Trump was talking to. They're all dead now. They don't want peace. Israel doesn't want peace. And what did we learn? What have we learned since JFK died? What have we learned? Since JFK died, Israel gets what they want from the U.S., regardless of our policy and our interests. And that's it. That's the story.